We are here, myself and Ray, the host of the New Labor Movement show, and we are here along with Eric Foreman, labor activist and co-op developer, adjunct
Good to
lecturer
see
at
you
the
again,
Harvard
Rich.
and
Hi.
Harry Van Arsdale Jr. Center for Labor Studies and co-founder of Union Co-op Working Group. And we have as a guest today on our show to try to help us talk about here on the third year marking of our strike against Spectrum Cable, Richard David Wolff. He's an American economist known for his work on economic methodology and class analysis. He's a professor of economics at the University of Massachusetts. Mr. Wolff, thank you for coming on the show with us.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
You're a very distinguished guest. Thank you for coming.
Oh, no, really. I mean, there's nothing, I say this from my heart, there's nothing I would rather do than to see a renewed labor movement and to help build that and be part of it. So you're doing me as big a favor as I'm doing you.
You make us blush.
I mean, we've been at this for a long time. 3 years is a long time for anybody to be on strike. But I think what we have going here now with what we're trying to create is going to not only speak volumes to what we're doing with this strike, but I think it's going to go way beyond that for what can happen as far as maybe even a fundamental change in the way we run society and our economy. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you first is, how do we best explain to people that this idea we have for a worker cooperative is actually possible, that it can be done?
Okay. I think the best two ways to go about it is, number one, to get across to people something which I think they're already beginning to figure out pretty well for themselves, which is that our economic system is falling apart. And I say this to you, having never until a few months ago thought that I would say what I just said. But people have got to understand that all of the old ideas and assumptions and ways you thought an economy had to work, you got to kind of chuck that out the window, because none of this is working. You're in a situation, and I'll explain it in a minute, but you're in a situation that demands you take new directions because everything else has failed. So I'll come back to that. The second way to get across, I think, especially for Americans, is to make it clear that other people have already gone into worker co-op types of reorganizing workplaces. And there's lots of stories to tell, lots of records to show people that it can be done, that it has been done, that the people involved in it are very grateful and happy that they went in that direction, so that Americans don't have to believe this is something, you know, out of the blue, some weird idea that idealistic people came up with, but you know, it's not realistic, all of that kind of stuff. Let me give you an example. At the beginning of this virus, 10 weeks ago, the unemployment rate in the United States was roughly, officially, 4.5%. In Germany, it was 5%. Okay, today in the United States, depending on how you count, 16, 17%, somewhere in that area. It's gone up 4 times. In Germany, the unemployment rate is 6% as I'm speaking to you. Why didn't it go up there? Why haven't millions of people been laid off and fired in Germany the way they were here? Their economy has been hit by the virus just like ours. Answer: they have a powerful labor union movement, they have a powerful socialist party, and they have a powerful left of the socialist party. It's called in Germany the Left Party. They have power. Millions of people read their newspapers, go to their meetings, are part of their organizations. The simple fact is that the leader of Germany, Angela Merkel, or the leader of France, Emmanuel Macron, they can't do what Mr. Trump does. And the reason isn't no mystery. Everybody in Europe knows. If they dared to throw that many people out of work, their streets would have been clogged. Nothing would have moved in those counties. The union movement would have shut them down, as they have been doing on and off for decades. This is a question of power and of organization. And the United States labor movement doesn't have the organization and therefore doesn't wield the power. I think you have the support of huge numbers of people. I think you could get the support of huger numbers. I think there's an army of people like me ready to help you do exactly that. But if you had that power, then you wouldn't be dealing with Hudson Yards the way you would. You wouldn't even see the kind of unemployment you have now. The government wouldn't dare do these things. In the US Congress, as we're talking, there are bills, you ready, to give all employers in America blanket immunity. Why? Because they're pushing, right? You all know that. They're pushing workers to go back. We're going to reopen America, all that shit. That's in order to get you back to work without the employer having to spend the money to make the place safe. That's all this is about. The rest is all bullshit. They need you to go back to work because they've discovered a basic law of economics. It isn't capital that makes the company run. It isn't raw materials. It's the human beings. And if you don't got them, your stuff is worthless, and so is your business. It only took them a few weeks. They're not that stupid, but they got it now, and they need you back. And they don't want to spend the money to make it safe. They never did. That's why we have OSHA. That's why we have all the things we have in our society, because if you leave employers the job of making the workplace safe, you're crazy. You'd have not read the history of capitalism.
So why they wouldn't shut it down? That's why they wouldn't shut anything down in the first place, and that's why we had 20,000 deaths in New York City.
That's right. They weren't willing. They were afraid. In the 1930s, when things, which is the last time we were in a condition like this, millions of American workers joined unions. These are people who had never been in a union before. They came from families where their mother and father had never been in a union before. They didn't join unions because they suddenly got left wing or something like that. They joined unions because they thought they could get through a terrible depression better in a union than out of one.
So, Mr.
And
Wolf,
they could, and they will again. The only thing you guys have is your numbers, your members or your possible member. You mobilize them. You get them, and I hate to tell you this, but it's the truth. You got to get them in the street, not in a lovely hall, not by internet. You got to get them massed out there where they look like they might do some damage. Then you will get the attention you deserve. Then the deals won't be made without you. They'll be made with you. You won't get everything you want, probably, but you'll get a hell of a lot more than now when no one thinks they need to take you seriously. Then you could come up with plans like, hey, we want a cooperative here. We don't want to be the last one to find out what's going on. We want to be part of making the decisions around here. You demand that we live with the decisions, okay, then we have to be part of making them. That's called democracy, shithead, and that's what you've got to do. I mean, I want to make it fun, but I want you to hear me. Okay, now the other part. I like to talk about this company in Spain called Mondragon. I hope you've heard of it, but it's a simple way to answer people's questions. Is this possible? And it's not because Mondragon has no problems. It's not heaven on earth. None of that. But it's a co-op. And it's a funny story. It was started by a Catholic priest in Spain in 1956. A priest who made a funny speech to his little congregation in the northern city of Spain called Mondragon. That's where the name comes from. A little city, very poor. It was even poorer then. So he makes a joke to his Catholic Church congregation. He says, if we wait for someone to come here and give us a job, we'll all die of old age. It's never going to happen. Nobody comes here. This is a piss poor area. So we got to be our own boss. So let's set up a co-op where we're the employer as well as the employee, and let's build a business that way. He started with 6 carpenters. That's it. Okay, now fast forward to today. Mondragon Cooperative Corporation has grown from 6 people in 1956 to, I don't know what their latest numbers are, but over 100,000 people. It's the 7th largest corporation in all of Spain. It's a family of about 200, 250 co-ops. They do manufacturing, they do services, they do all kinds of stuff. They run, for example, the largest supermarket chain in all of Spain is part of their operation, okay? They are, make it a real long story short, wildly successful. Over those 70 years, they've competed, their co-ops, with capitalist enterprises, owner, boss, all of that, and they've defeated them in the competition. That's why they grew. They are now so important that nothing happens in Spain without them. Even when the government is right-wing, it sends the labor minister up there to Mondragon in a helicopter to meet with them to discuss what's going to happen in the country, because if you're the 7th biggest company in the country, you wield a lot of power. They have their own bank they set up because they're big. They have their own retirement homes for workers who reach 65. They can go right into the retirement. And all of it is run democratically. In each of these 250 co-ops, the workers get together and decide what to do. I've been there. I went to see it. Here's the moment I love the best. It's the annual meeting, and it's time to review the supervisors, the foreman and the supervisors. All the workers discuss how good the supervisor was or wasn't. And then they take a vote. Either the supervisor stays or he's fired. The workers hire and fire the supervisor. It's the opposite of what we do. Here's another two rules that I observed, so I can talk about them first person. I don't read about this. First rule: highest paid person cannot get more than 8 or 8.5 times what the lowest paid person gets. In this country now, it's about 300 to 1. In that part of the world, it's 8 to 1. That's why they don't have extreme wealth and poverty next door to each other, because they don't allow it. That's it. And they've been doing that for decades. No problem.
Mr. Wolf, so there's a question I have for you.
Okay.
What you're speaking of right now, and this is in trying to combat that, because on the other side, we'll say like here in New York, the argument that our politicians would give is as far as if you're going to try to make every job in the city union or a high-paying job, their argument would be if we make the cost of the job, of every job high-paying, then no one will want to come and actually build and invest in our city. And that's the reason that we aren't able to do it. The economics, they say, doesn't make sense for them in order to be able to do it. How do we combat that and put a economic argument to say that the long-term gains are better than the short-term goals?
Okay. There's so many ways I don't even know where to start. So let me start with a couple. If you want to make an argument about why businesses move from one part of the country to another, or from one country to another. In other words, if you're talking about why would a company say, come to New York, then we've done that work. That work has been done. 1 million questionnaires have been given to companies, 1 million analyses of companies that moved. Why did you move? What were the costs? What were the benefits? And here's what we know. The labor cost of the public employees doesn't even appear on the list. That's how unimportant it is. Here's what does matter. They don't want to pay taxes. Absolutely. They would like to have a low tax, no tax, tax holiday, and they will try for all of that. They will tell you, they'll give you the talking points if you're the politician. They'll write them. They hire people like me to do what I'm about to tell you. Here's 27 economic arguments why you should give Verizon a big tax cut. Or Jeffrey Bezos. Here, give him what did he get? He was angling for 3 or 4 billion, if I remember, to go out there in Brooklyn or Long Island or Queens or wherever it was. Okay. He would hire a guy like me, pay me very well, much better than I get paid in a university, to come up with some nice 6 to 10 economic arguments about why it would be good to do that. He'd give it to me, I'd write it up, immediately they'd get me on TV, I'd explain it to everybody, I'd make a pretty chart so de Blasio could get up there or Cuomo could get up there and talk the talk. It's all bullshit. Highly paid. No, it is. I'm just,
Yeah, 100%.
I could save you time, but it's wasting all of our time. It's got nothing to do with nothing. It's a freebie. When Mr. Bezos was told, thanks mostly to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, basically, was told, take a hike. He went, he did what he would have done anyway. He still is putting his people here in New York City. He just didn't get, it was a freebie. Why not? Pay me $100,000 to do some bullshit, throw a little money at the right people on the city council. That's chump change. That's like you giving me, 2 quarters to do something. Thank you very much, but I don't need 2 quarters, and you don't give a crap about 2 quarters. So the whole thing had nothing to do with nothing, but it's worth it. He could have got $4 billion, right? And he may have muscled money out of some other poor city by telling them the story that now they're in New York and the blah, blah, blah. This is got nothing to do. The reason you're in trouble is that the city, whoever your employer is, doesn't want to give you wage increases. They want to do other things with the money.
Well, that's spectrum. They don't even want just that. They want to completely remove the union altogether. So
absolutely, and the reason is you're harder to muscle to take the shit they have to give out than if they weren't unionized. That's all. I mean, a union is a pain in the neck. That's all for them. They want you out of there because they can deal better, stuff more crap down your throat. Look, the story I told you before, that's going to affect you. Let me give you a really good piece of advice. Your workers are going to be put under pressure in the next months and years, way worse than what they've ever seen, because the employer can get away with it. There's loads of people out there who will take the jobs you now have at lower pay, fewer benefits, worse conditions, and they know it. Even the nice employer who doesn't want to take advantage, his competitors are taking advantage, and so he'll have to do it pretty soon too. If you don't have the muscle to push back, you're going to get shafted. You have to mobilize. You have the people, and the people will do it, but you have to mobilize it. Otherwise, I feel for this country. We are already the most unequal distribution of wealth and income in the advanced industrial world, and we're about to become even more unequal than everybody else than we already are. And the only movement that can stop that is a mass movement of angry working people saying they won't have it.
I have one question. Now, do you believe that if we were successful in starting this cable cooperative, that could be the beginning of a movement that would let the average working person know that they don't have to bow, I don't want to say bow down, but maybe I want to say bow down to corporate America, and they could start fighting for their own slice of the pie, their own bigger slice of the pie?
Yes, and I think you guys you have every right. And look, it's hard enough if you're going to make a fight like this. You should take whatever pleasures you can. And one of the pleasures you should take is to know that you will be a very big inspiration to workers all over the country who don't dare even think about these kinds of things, and who are going to have their eyes open big and wide when someone tells them the story of what you did. There are excuse me, all kinds of examples of people in manufacturing and services in this country that have done this, have converted a business from top down to worker co-op, or have started a whole new one as worker co-ops.
Would the Green Bay Packers be considered one?
Well, they're halfway there. They're not all the way there. But look,
Beat me to, he
everybody,
beat me to the punch. That was the next question I was going to
yeah,
ask.
no. They're a good example because people said you couldn't do that. Well, they did it. Sure, they can do it. Don't. Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get most of the time people roll their eyes and tell you that this is not possible. This can't be done. Just let it roll off your back. It's people who are afraid to change, and they're going to go down with the ship because, as I tried to tell you, the ship is going down. It's going to take them with it. This economy is done. So those people are also trying to figure out how to make this work for them. That's why they're throwing away the rules. They're saying things you're not supposed to say. They're doing things you're not, you can see it every day, what he's trying to do. You've got to understand that you're it. You, the labor movement, if you take new directions, you will become the leader of this whole movement, whether it's Occupy or Bernie Sanders or Black Lives Matter. Everybody is looking for something that can bring change, and they don't know quite how to do it. And I don't mean to take away from any of those. I'm glad there was Occupy. I'm glad there was Bernie. I'm glad there's Black Lives Matter, all of that. But I know that those are the beginnings, the early. That has to be brought together, and it has to include the labor movement. There is no shortcut. And the labor movement means people like you who are going to try to do this. And if you can pull it off, yes, you will be a model. You'll be an inspiration. People might, like me, will write books about it and bring you back on television about it, because you should be heard. By the way, a personal commitment from me. You get this project underway, you'll be on at least my radio and television show, and we're getting pretty big now, so you'll be there again, and boy, will we will want to get the word out about what you're doing.
All right.
I greatly appreciate that. Well, I only have one other thing. I said it's amazing how the conversation is always based around union guys make too much money and their benefits are too expensive, and the conversation should really be, why don't we have what they have? Instead of saying, oh, you have too much, why don't people say, I want that? Exactly. You can be damn sure that the people at the other end, and I tell you, I mean, I come from a very modest family, but I went to all the fancy schools, so I know all these people, and they've been, personal friends of mine on and off for years. They understand, many of them, they understand exactly what's going on. They may not say it publicly because they're an official or they're a corporate executive or something, but 2 beers and a relaxed afternoon, and out it comes, right? Out it comes. They know what the hell is going on. They sure as hell don't want to live your life. They're afraid. They really are, the honest ones. They're afraid that the good times for them are coming to an end. They kind of know it's coming. They don't want it. Of course not.
And they may be nasty to stop it.
Oh, yes.
But they know somewhere. They know. And here's a joke that they tell me. Rick, they said, you know us. Remember us when you put us up against the wall. They know. They fucking know what's coming. They hope it won't, but that kind of joke will occur to them because they know. And I got to be honest with you, I never expected in my life, you can see from my hair, I'm older than you guys. I never expected to see in the United States. I knew it would come one day. I did. But I never expected that I would see what I'm seeing now. I've been a critic of capitalism, this system, for most of my adult life. Early on, when I was a student in the university, I would ask questions about this economic system. Why is it so unfair? Why do so few have so much and so many have so little? I would ask those questions, and my professors couldn't give me answers. And as that continued, I became a critic. This system stinks, and these people aren't giving me any reason to accept a stinking system. So, but I never expected to get the audience I have now. I mean, the radio TV show I put on goes out to millions of people in this country. I mean, it's amazing. I write stuff, everybody wants to publish it. It's weird. It's like, imagine yourself having sung a song most of your life. And when you sang this song, the people around you were irritated. Oh, shut up, they said. We've heard that jingle. And then one day, you're whistling the same song. Everybody thinks it's the greatest music they ever heard.
Yeah.
It's the same song. I've been singing the same song. Suddenly, people are excited. I admit it. It excites me too. I get revved up. And I love seeing people like you do something with this. Go run with it. Teach the rest of us how to do it. And don't worry, will you make mistakes? Absolutely. Of course you will. Especially because a lot of this is flying by the seat of your pants. You're going to make mistakes. And those mistakes are going to teach the rest of us what not to do. And you're going to make successes, and we're going to follow you on that.
I think that's good.
Absolutely. Man,
Thank you.
I know we're in the middle of a terrible place. I'm hunkered down here with my family, afraid to go back into New York City because I'm going to get sick or something like that. And the unemployment drives me crazy. On the other hand, the movement in the country, people getting off their ass and going together with other people and not letting the cops terrorize them into going back into their houses. I mean, I love that. That's without that, you're not going to get change in this country. That has to happen. I'm sorry about the people who get beat. I'm sorry about the people who get shot. But you and I both know in this country where everybody has 27 guns, that's going to be part of the story. And that's not because we're making trouble. It's because you have a country that teaches people that the way to solve problems is by shooting other people. They went to Afghanistan, they shot a lot of people, didn't do shit. They went to Iraq and shot an awful lot of people, didn't do shit either. But nobody seems to get the message that doesn't solve your problem. It just doesn't.
Well, I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
We got a good amount of show here. We're going to probably use some of this for our town hall, and then we're going to probably use the rest of it for our full show.
Wonderful. Make whatever use you want. My only request is when you've got something put together, send us a link or send us something, because we'll put it on our platforms and we'll promote it, and that'll get it out to even larger numbers of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We're humbled
Mr.
by
Wolf,
your
we really
presence.
appreciate it.
Okay, sir. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you so much.